Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 till 9 to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments in the live feed below or whichever platform that you're watching on. And if you need any advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. We've got accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. So during the session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with the poll. And at the end of this session, around 5 to 9, we'll be revealing the results. So, good morning. I'm Tommie. I'm the founder of at Bambuu Brush and also the environmental project lead at Humanitas Charity. And today we'll be talking all things COP. Obviously, the last 2 weeks has all been around Glasgow and the climate issue. And today we'll be going through a number of things about the importance of COP, what happened at COP, the good, the bad, the ugly, and what we can all do next as small and medium-sized business owners. So yeah, we were up there for 10 days of the 14 days, which was pretty incredible. And it was amazing to be highlighted. We were up there for a number of events with Intuit QuickBooks, also externally highlighting our business as a way to, as a business to inspire others to take action. Long story short, about what we do, we have sustainable products which part fund our social impact projects around the world, and specifically the developing world, to combat and utilize plastic waste. Alongside of that, we run big educational workshops in schools and businesses and community cleanups to get people inspired all around taking action, specifically on plastic. But we believe plastic is the gateway and can be the bridge to get people inspired around taking action for global warming and the climate crisis. So let's go through what COP was and the importance of COP. So the reason for COP was set out that all the global leaders around the world would come together and see where they were and see where they are in regards to the commitment that they made in 2015 around the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, broke down really simple, was an agreement where 196 countries around the world committed that they would reduce their emissions to keep the global warming temperature below 2 degrees, and specifically aiming for 1.5 degrees, as this is what the science tells us, that if we keep below that 1.5 degrees, we can reverse the actions and some of the negative impacts that we're now seeing all over the world, the dramatic weather changes, the sea levels rising, the acidification of the oceans. So this 1.5 degrees was really imperative and really important that countries were sticking to it. So COP26 was an update for countries to show where we were at in regards to progress, let's put it that way. So the goal for the Paris Agreement was, I think everyone's probably heard of the term net zero. Net zero essentially means that we will produce, we will absorb and offset the amount of carbon that we produce and keep it at zero. So net zero is a goal for 2050. The secondary goal for that is we're going to halve emissions by 2030, and this will allow us to keep that 1.5 degree threshold alive. So we had all global leaders all around the world in Glasgow working towards this 1.5 degree target. So I think it's important just to highlight why 1.5 is the target. If we're able to keep the global levels of carbon dioxide below and the global temperatures below 1.5, this would slow the rate of the ice caps melting. So at the moment, the IPCC report came out a couple of months ago that we've got global warming happening all over the world, but specifically on the 2 ice caps, there is warming increasing at a rate of around 3 times the rest of the world. ice caps are melting, of course, sea levels rising. You may have seen in the news quite a lot of, over the last couple of weeks, quite a lot of the low-lying nations of the likes of the Maldives, the Fiji Islands, Tuvalu Islands, all highlighting the dramatic increases they've seen over the last couple of years, and that they're at the forefront of the climate issue. So with ice caps melting, you've got sea levels rising, but also there is the level of the massive dramatic changes in the weather systems. And that's why you've got, over the last couple of years, we've seen ridiculous amounts of wildfires. We've seen ridiculous amounts of flooding, because there is such an imbalance. But the overall scary aspect of this is that if we've got the sea levels rising, that's reducing the amount of land space. So people who live on the coast are going to have to be dispersed into the country. We've then got other areas of those countries where there's going to be floods, there's going to be wildfires. So again, that land mass, and as we're growing in population, the density of the world population is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and this is going to cause mass migration. I believe last year in 2020 there was 70 million people around the world who are displaced from their homes due to climate issues, and this is just going to compound every single year. So it's really important that 1.5 degree level is intact. So they were kind of the goals of COP, for countries to highlight what they're doing and progress they're making towards that 1.5 degree threshold and net zero, and the outcome. You've probably all seen in the media that there was a lot of mixtures of emotions. If we look at the positives around what's happened at COP, and start with the positives, there was the Glasgow Climate Pact that was signed by 197 countries, which was amazing. There was a lot of work towards the transparency of these countries, highlighting the fact that there needs to be transparency. So what's been put in place is that every 2 years, countries will have to file a report to show exactly their progress towards hitting the targets. You've also got the fact that a massive amount of developing countries and indigenous countries were highlighting their issues, and I think especially in the media, that their voice was heard far better than it has done in previous years. But then let's look on the bad things that happened. Unfortunately, there was a really big focus around a loss and damage fund. So the loss and damage fund was there to be put out for countries who are feeling the effects of climate change right now. Us in the UK, or majority of the Western world, who are contributing far greater to the climate issue, aren't seeing those effects, whereas you've got places across Africa, across Asia, the low-lying countries who are feeling the effects of climate change right now. And that loss and damage fund was going to be put there, so developing countries will be able to access that fund for any damages and any loss that was happening for that country. Unfortunately, that wasn't highlighted, and that wasn't put through. There are talks that there's going to be a $1 trillion fund from 2025 for that loss and damage, but at the moment it wasn't signed, and that was a crucial element for a lot of activists at the moment, that declaration wasn't signed. You've also got the fact that fossil fuels, yes, there's a positive that fossil fuels were the first time that fossil fuels were talked about at COP, but there was a change in the last minute, that they changed some of the wording from phase out to phase down. And although that wording may seem very minimal, but to phase out would be completely eradicating fossil fuels by 2030. But now the wording has gone to phase down, which obviously doesn't have that impact. It doesn't show that commitment that countries are willing to take away the profits from the countries, and focus around renewables, focus around ways in which that we can sustain energy production, and so it was a bit of a it was a big thing last minute that got changed. It was on the last day that everything got changed. And then finally, another bad thing, the fact that nature-based solutions weren't discussed enough at COP. Personally, I believe that nature has the answer to a lot of things, and people who have got the most knowledge around nature-based solutions weren't in these conversations. So if we look at, just quickly run through the things that were highlighted in the Glasgow Climate Pact, you've got the countries, they've all got to come back next year, which is another positive, to revisit and strengthen their own pledges to meet the targets for 2030. The current pledges that were set out, if met, we would be on course to hit 2.4 degrees global warming, which is, I think at the moment we're about 1.2, 1.3 degrees. So we haven't got far off. So the fact that countries are coming back next year is a positive. The fact that they've got a year to really strengthen their pledges of what their nations are going to do to hit the targets is a positive. It's a shame it couldn't be done last week, and the matter of urgency needs to be done quicker. But we need to be, I think there's a realistic target. And then, yeah, the coal and the fossil fuels, the first time everything was mentioned at COP, which is great. And the big thing around the whole, one of the main things that was missed around the whole talks was this loss and damage, because essentially us on this call now, we have got the privilege to tune in, and we're all small business owners, and we're probably in the UK or across Europe or in the States. We're not going to feel the effects. It's not on our doorstep. You've got places with land, crazy amounts of extreme weather formations and weather changes, and they're the people who are going to be feeling the real effects. And that fund, to be able to help people and nations for that was really important. So they're kind of the main highlights around everything that happened at COP. And hopefully it's giving you a little bit of a background of the tick points. But I think it's important that we look at what we can do as small business owners to be able to work towards some of these emissions. I spoke on a panel at COP with Intuit around the importance of having small and medium-sized businesses in the conversations towards climate. Okay, it's not the majority of people, it's not the main focus, but I think as our businesses grow, it's important to have those positive policies around sustainability in place. So a big focus around COP for Intuit, and a big focus around COP for a lot of the scenarios is the Sme Climate Hub, which is essentially a platform. I'd highly advise everyone to get on there now, sign up, make the commitment. We've already started receiving some of the tools and the resources to be able to make pledges and how we can work towards the targets. But it's essentially a platform that gives you all the tools, all the resources around how we can work towards hitting those targets as small, medium-sized business owners. So smeclimatehub.org /QuickBooks, and you can sign up, comes through immediately. The resources are incredible, and as we go through the year, there's going to be more resources, more ways that we can all get involved and do our part. Okay, so now I've got some questions from everyone online. So first of all, we've got Imogen on Instagram. What is the process of making decisions that positively impact the business and community while running a successful business? Good question. So for us as business owners, we're probably slightly different. Our business started from, long story short, we lived in Asia, seen the worst of plastic pollution, and we wanted to make a difference. So sustainability was at the core and the ethos of our business. So we're kind of separate. But I think it's important to understand that nowadays your employees, your customers, your clients, your partners, whoever it is, all those stakeholders, all the majority of people want to do good and want to be part of the solution, that so our children and our grandchildren have a beautiful planet like we do. And whether that's subconsciously or people are actively making a difference, we know that people want to do that. So being able to understand that those environmentally conscious decisions are beneficial to, one, your employees, because I think if you can engage your employees around sustainability, it gives them a well-being, and the fact that they're doing their part, but also without being greenwashing, from a marketing point, your customers want to know that you as a business and as an entity, as a product, as a service, will be doing your part to make a difference. So it's twofold. I see it's very beneficial. We run big community cleanups. We run educational workshops. Everything that we do is all around taking action, and being able to create that community base where people are engaged with what you do, but also engaged in the bigger picture. But it does take time to just take a step back and understand, okay, what can we do as a provider of these services? Thank you, Imogen. Okay, Susie on Twitter. Why do you think it's so difficult to get businesses, big and small, to limit our carbon output? One's education. I don't think we have a level. I'm only talking for myself, but growing up at school, we didn't get that level of education around the issues that are happening now. So we don't have, I don't believe, and this is maybe talking out of term, but I don't believe the general population around the world has a fundamental knowledge around the climate issue in general, but then what can we do? So it's not at the forefront of the mind, whereas you've got the next generations below. They're more in tune with everything, so that will become more integral within businesses. So education is massive. Ease of resources is massive. That education and resources link. So that's where, again, I highlight the Sme Climate Hub. It's got everything that you need there. And I think mainly that's it. I think they're the first points of call. Education, give people the knowledge around why we need to do it, what we can do, and then that will start someone on their sustainable journey. I think we all need to understand that no matter what role we've got as business leaders, as owners of businesses, as people within roles, you can all make a difference within your role, especially when you're multiplying those actions within your business, within your local community, within your county. If we're all working towards those small incremental improvements, there's a big scale project here. So education, and hopefully that will turn people into action. Thank you for that, Susie. Connor from Instagram. I saw the commitment around ending deforestation by 2030. Yes, which I think is fantastic, but I don't understand why this can't happen sooner. Amen, Connor. No, agreed. And it's the same with the fossil fuels, and it's exactly the same. There is a lot of lobbying going on, and there's a lot of pressure on governments and from corporates who essentially, it gets talked about so much, but essentially are there to make as much money as possible. The climate and people are secondary. You've also got a conversation around, that this is specifically for deforestation. It should happen sooner. A really sad stat that I heard from COP is that we always look at the Amazon as the lungs of our planet, essentially. Studies are now coming out to show that the Congo Basin is actually producing more oxygen and absorbing more carbon dioxide than the Amazon now. That just highlights how much deforestation has happened in the Amazon. There's also an economic level, the whole picture around India and China changing the wording, lobbying the wording to be changed from phase out to phase down, is because they've got their own economic interventions that they want to use in their countries. India at the moment will soon be one of the biggest nations economically in the world. They don't want to stop that, but they're mainly using fossil fuels. So in short, there's just, I wish I had the answer, but there is a lot of lobbying going around, and it's just a shame that people aren't seeing that this is a long-term project, not a short-term 5-10 years, make as much money. We need to have that longevity in our thought process, which is quite frankly not there. Thank you for that, Connor. Millie on Facebook, looking to add green requirements into our partner contracts, and if we can, help them transition their business rather than cutting them off. Any advice on how to audit them and help them change over? Yes, highlight again, I feel like I'm plugging it loads, but go towards the Sme Climate Hub, and it'll have everything that you need to do to be able to help other businesses work towards understanding. I think the biggest thing we need to look at is firstly understanding our own footprint and having an audit, looking at the energy that we're utilising, look at the waste that we're consuming, looking at the travel aspect of how our employees are working. Are they travelling in individually in cars? Is there a way that we can do pool schemes where you can increase 2 people going into a car? Is there a way you can promote people using the bike? But having that way of auditing, so you as a business or you as a partner understand exactly your level of carbon emissions, and then you can put a plan in place. Okay, this highlights we're making this, we're contributing X. This area is extremely high, this area is extremely low. Let's reduce this and maybe push this bit up so it levels out and we're reducing our footprint. And then give yourself a 6-9 yearly plan. So yeah, I think the best way is working. I think we need to have an open conversation. I would say sustainability is a journey, and I think this is a problem that's highlighted a lot in the eco space previously, in the fact that if you don't do it perfectly, you are not doing it correct. You're making more negative impacts than positive impacts. No, this is a journey. We need to be working with customers. We need to be working with partners to become more eco, to become more green. So let's work together. Let's not close our eyes, put our head in the sand around, okay, if we're going to do it badly, let's not do it at all. No, let's do it wrong, then let's continually improve. And then create that legacy. It's a longer term. I think sustainability has the impact, has the potential impact to bring people together and to increase that partnership, because we know that climate change is one of the biggest subjects in which brings the right wing and the left wing together, because everyone wants a better future for their children. Thank you, Millie. Niall on Twitter. Many of the UK's big supermarkets pledged to halve their impact by 2030. How will they be measuring this, and what can we learn from them? I know that in years to come there will be they will need to show progression. I don't know if it's coming in next year or the year after, but I know that they'll need to show reports that they are improving and they are being transparent. This thing around COP on a governmental level is the fact that governments are going to need to show their reporting and be transparent about where they're progressing towards to hit the targets. I think that will filter down to businesses. I'd like to think so. So there will be some regulations and some reporting in which we, as business owners, will need to submit our reports to a higher, whoever that may be. I would like to say that is happening. Whether it does, I don't know. I think it should have been done 5 years ago. I think it's really important, one, for businesses to understand their own footprint, but to be transparent about it. Unfortunately, transparency is not the world when you've got money involved. So it really needs to be highlighted. Us as business owners need to push for that. We need to be open. We really need to be open to to lifting up the hood of our business around sustainability and showing all the ugly parts and saying, okay, where can we move from? And not it shouldn't be pushed on us like you're doing wrong. But there just needs to be a level of transparency in all aspects, and we need to be open to it. Thanks, Niall. Tommie, Rishi Sunak announced that large businesses will need to produce net zero transition plans in 2024. Yes, fantastic. Where will this be capped at? And do you think smaller businesses will be expected to do it? I don't think small businesses will be expected to do it, but what I think is that small businesses, there'll be schemes in which there'll be incentives for small businesses to do it. I know that small to medium-sized businesses take up around 90% of businesses around the world. And I guess the governments will focus on the big corporations because they have the biggest impact. But I think it's really important for us as small business owners and small business leaders and small businesses to be in those conversations. There needs to be incentives around what we can do, because we have a big footprint as SMEs. And if we're out of that conversation and there's not incentives that draw us away from the initial goals of the business, which is essentially to get by, the last year has been really hard for SMEs. So if there was not them incentives for us to go, okay, this will be beneficial, a lot of small businesses won't do it. So I don't know if there's going to be they'll need to produce plans, but I think hopefully there'll be benefits for small, medium-sized businesses to produce reports and be transparent to transition towards those net zero targets. Thank you for that, Tommie. Great name as well. Alina from Twitter, what is your opinion on taxing businesses for their pollution levels and the yearly emissions? Amen. I think it should be done. A couple of years ago, there was talks of a post-consumer tax on packaging being introduced. I think with COVID, that's been transitioned, and I don't know where we're at with that. But at the moment, let's go back to the supermarket scenario. Supermarkets are responsible for selling a product to you, but they're not really responsible for the next stage. So they could be buying anything with whatever packaging it is, but they're not responsible for the whole life cycle, the end of life of that packaging. But I think it's really important that happens, because then if the big supermarkets who are making a lot of money and they've got such big volumes, if they're getting taxed on those issues or those points, they're going to be more wary of what they buy. They're going to be more wary of of their suppliers. So then there's going to be knock that onto the suppliers. They're going to be more wary of the packaging and the products that they produce. And then also this aspect of end of life is going to be it's going to be ridiculously reduced. There's no commonality of all of this at the moment of the supply chain. So yes, I think it should do it should be one of the quickest, easiest things that businesses should do, to tax the businesses for the amount of pollution levels, but waste that they produce, and put that money back into education. So imagine all that money coming back into tax and put that into business education around hitting our climate goals, or making sure that all employees understand that they've got a greater knowledge around the global crisis that we're at the moment. Thank you very much for that, Elena. Okay. At the beginning of the live session, we put a question out, which was, do you think COP26 was a success? Oh wow! So we had 0% said yes, and 0% said no, and 100% not sure. To be honest, I'm with you. I think that goes across the whole industry. I think that goes across all different industries. There were progressions in the fact that fossil fuels was spoken about. Transparency was a highlight as well. The fact that Indigenous people started to have their voice, but the urgency is not happening. There needs to be a more urgent. There needs to be a more. It just needs to transition quicker. The fact that we're coming back next year is again a positive, but realistically, this should have happened last week. This really should have happened right at the start. Conversations before COP should have been happening, in which we know that there's going to be a plan for the next year. We're losing a year. I mean, looking at one aspect that I took away is the climate refugees. Just have a think about last 2020, 70 million people were displaced from their homes due to climate issues. That's just 70 million people. Where are 70 million people going to go? The population density is just going to increase. As the dramatic changes in weather conditions grow, as sea levels are rising, as bushfires are pressing in, as you've got the glaciers in the Himalayas and South America and Central America shrinking, so there's no water sources for people who live around those basins. There's going to be a scary amount of climate refugees, increasing the density of the population. So it's a big issue. It needs to happen ASAP. It really needs to happen now. So I think I'm with you, everyone listening in, 100%, not sure. Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to get in contact, please feel free to give me a DM on @Bambuu Brush. We spell our business name pretty weirdly. At BAMBUU Brush. All of our social media, or please email me directly. It's Tommie with an IE @bamboobrush.com. I'll ask any questions. So please get in touch. So coming up next on Ask the Expert on Monday is Judith Dugdale. She's an accountant and head of digital solutions at MHA Moore and Smalley. Tune in to learn how to maximize the value of your business. And a quick reminder that if you need any advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. We've got accountants and business experts on hand 24/7. Finally, this is perfect as well, and I've already plugged it quite a few times, but finally, check out the Sme Climate Hub. You can go and calculate your carbon footprint and make your commitment that you're going to go net zero by 2050 and half your emissions by 2030. So it's smeclimatehub.org/QuickBooks. Go and do it. It's incredible. Got the tools and resources to make an impact. And finally, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it, answering all your questions. Hope you have the best day, and we'll catch up soon.